It's Sunday, January 26th, I believe, and we're approaching a breakwater to enter the Panama Canal passage. So I'm going to pan across and give you an idea that there are plenty of ships over here queued up, either to go in or they're coming out, but it looks like they're awaiting entry. And this is mainly cargo that I can see. And over here is the breakwater that we're just passing into. And then if you look way down over there, you'll see there's a big suspension bridge over there. So anyway, this is the beginning of the Panama Canal passage, that is. All right. All right, it is now 5 minutes after 7 on the day of the beginning of our Panama Canal transit. And we're getting ready we're scouting deck 10 to find a good place that doesn't have a glass barrier to shoot through. We're trying to find a place where we can shoot without anything in between the lens and what we're shooting. So what we're going to do is go outside, and that's the mission here, is to scout a spot that's going to be optimized for shooting. See, as you can see, there are these glass wind screens most of the way around here. And what I'm trying to do is find a spot where we can aim the camera without that in the way. So, and then we'll go back to the room and bring the Sony camera up on its tripod and set it up wherever we determine is the best spot. There are some brave souls down here in the swimming pool already. It's 5 after 7 in the morning, and we're just scouting the deck. Okay, now it looks like as I come up on here, I'm on deck 10, the base of the pool deck. There's spots right over here. Morning. There are spots right over here that are unimpeded. Okay, so you see how that glass screen comes down to nothing here? So this is a perfect spot right here if we're on the right-hand side of the ship. Now, what I want to do, depending what I don't know because I haven't researched it well, shame on me, is whether this is the starboard side of the ship. And you can see there's a suspension bridge over there. Now I'm going to move over to the port side and see if we have a similar arrangement, so that in case the action is on the port side, we'll be prepared for that. Because there's no place on this ship, like at the very front, where you can go that I'm aware of. No sports deck that has an unimpeded view. So let's take a look over here and see what's what. Again, we have here the glass screens, which we don't want to have in between us and what we're trying to shoot. And here we come around here. This looks promising. There's a glass screen there, and here we are. So either way, whether it's port or starboard, we've got an unimpeded. You see that there's the end of the glass screen right there. So we have a beautiful unimpeded view, port and starboard. The only thing we don't have is something up top on deck 11. So what I'm going to do now is jump up to deck 11 and see if there's anything up there that's good for us. Now, deck 11 has the shot, but it's got these windscreens going all the way across. So there's no place. You can see all these people gathering. There's no place here that doesn't have this windscreen in the way, which is really unfortunate. Yeah, there's no front-facing area that does not have a glass screen in front of it. So I think what we'll do is we'll set up on the side that we think is right and go from there. You can see that everybody's that's up early that cares about this is up here on deck 11, and they're all shooting the best they can through these glass screens. And we've got one very clever fellow who's got a DJI Pocket 3 up on an extension pole, which is very clever. But one way or another, he doesn't have the control. I'm going to use the Sony FX30 and I've got a tripod and it's not tall enough to get up above this glass screen. So what we're going to do is we've interrogated the crew a little bit. There were a couple of crew members up here, and they indicated that the interesting view of this is going to be on the port side. So we're going to set up down on the port side where we were just a moment ago, and go from there. We've just passed under this suspension bridge and are at rest, awaiting our turn. There's some larger ship up in there. No, thank you. And I've set up here for a time-lapse shot once we get up in the channel. And it looks like we're taking the right-hand side, which I'm betting is the old canal. And if you look over there, it looks like some kind of MSC or some kind of a much bigger ship going up on the left side. So I'm betting that's the new locks because it's bigger. And we'll just anticipate this being the old locks on the right-hand side. A crew member has just come and confirmed that we are definitely going down into the old locks. Okay, so we've staged, and he's also confirmed that we're staged on the correct side of the channel, that the left-hand side of the channel that you're seeing. The left-hand side of the channel is the new locks, and the right-hand side that we're heading up into are the old locks, which is what we were hoping for. And he's also confirmed that all of the interesting machinery will be here on the port side so that we can be assured that this is the best camera setup if you don't want to have a glass screen in your way. All right, so that's that. Now I had been set up all the way to the front of this dead end up against the bridge there, and I realized after I had started the time-lapse shot that actually coming back to the furthest back section, which is where I am now, where the glass recedes and stops, gives me a better angle forward. Okay, so what we did is we pulled back about 30, 40 yards back from the up against the bridge up there to the closer to the pool deck, so that I could get a better angle with more forward view. And everybody, my wife confirmed that being up on deck 11, I'm on deck 10 right now, being up on deck 11 where a lot of the other people are isn't working as well for some folks because they've got that glare coming off that glass screen. So I think we are in a pretty good shape here. Also had a confirmation from another crew member that the left-hand side, the port side, is going to have the better view of the canal equipment. So as we go down here, this is kind of the shot we're going to have is down here, where it'd be perfect if we were able to get right on the front of the ship. But since, again, it's blocked by these glass windscreens, that I elected to come over here. I think I'm going to get a better shot. All right. You can see that we're coming into the meat of the matter here. There's a cargo ship on the left-hand side coming just right along. And it's interesting, since we're in the old locks, this is a lot narrower than the other side over there where the MSC ship is. That's going to make it more interesting, I think, for viewing, and because you can see how closely together we are with that ship coming through. I mean, it's only 20, maybe 20 yards at the most between us and them, and so anyway, that makes that interesting, I think. And he's moving along at a pretty good clip for cargo. It looks like we're not moving, okay? We're waiting in line. This ship here has just come out of this lock, and he's on his way to the open sea. We, on the other hand, are queued up, so we're not moving. We're still not moving, and that's because we're queued up. And it looks like that Norwegian ship across the way, same thing. They're at rest, awaiting their turn to go through. I'm not exactly sure how queued up this is, and that will be taking the shots off the front of the ship that I can't get without glass in the way with these cameras. So what you're going to be seeing is a combination of shots taken on a Sony FX30. That'll be the time-lapse photography, and then the DJI Pocket 3, which is what you're seeing, which will be off the port side as well. And then she will be using an iPhone to take shots off the front of the ship through the glass off of the observation lounge. So once we kind of combine all of that, it should be a decent representation of what a person would expect on this. We are approaching the gate and locks. There's the head of the lock right there that you can see. And there you have it. Now there's a good angle of the lock on the other side. What was wrong? The ship next to us, the commercial ship, which I think is a tanker, is just finishing being pulled through by these mules over here. You can see right down here that those tug motors called mules are finishing them up, and it looks like it's going to be our turn to go in now. We've started forward, so we're headed down there into the right hand side of this, and we are definitely, you can see the motors, the tug motors down here moving us forward, and we'll be recording all of that on time lapse. Here's another shot of the approach to the lock gate itself. You can see that the front gate that look at the other side, there are the gates at the back end of the lock that face the ocean, and the ship that just went through there, those were retracted and they're just getting ready to close. And they'll be closing behind us as we get into this chamber of the lock. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull into another wall, another lock gate that's on the right hand side of what you're looking at there. Once these locks on this end are closed, they'll open those gates, which will flood this chamber and bring us up to the next higher level for the intermediate lock, and then there's a third step. So it looks like there's 1, 2, 3 steps to get up to the top, or maybe it's 2, something, 1 or 2 steps. So anyway, here we go. Looks like we're getting lock closure behind, the locks on the side over here are just finishing closing up. And I imagine that we will have to get all the way forward before ours will close up. And I won't be able to shoot that because it's way on the aft of the ship, obviously. But we should be able to get a pretty good time lapse of climbing up these stair steps through these locks with the water and the flooding, etc. There's one of the tow motor mules repositioning to go get the next ship along. So he was one of the ones that would have been engaged in pulling that ship that we just showed you out. And now they're going back to the front of the lock to start pulling the next one through. By the way, it was revealed yesterday in a trivia game that Silversea is paying over $450,000 US to come through here. And so you get an idea of the economics of this are pretty interesting. We're getting very near the front of the lock. It looks like we're about there. I think they'll be stopping momentarily because as you can see on the left-hand side, we can see the gates. Okay, so I'm expecting this to stop any second now, and then they'll close it up behind us and flood it, and we should be up at ground level. There was an announcement made just a few minutes ago that, well, while in the lock portions of the canal, these tow motors are in the attached by lines to the bow and the stern of the ship, are the only propulsion. The ship is not doing anything. There's no power coming from the ship, no steering, no nothing. It's all about being pulled tight between these lines, between these mules on both sides of the ship, so that you can, they can control it from there. So the ship is not under its own power at this point. All right, we're at the Gaetan locks, and it's our first time coming through here. And we have some pretty interesting angles of photography. And Annette is taking pictures off the front Panama, the exploration lounge, with her iPhone, and I've got the DJI Pocket, which is what you're looking at here. And then we've got another camera set up over here, a Sony FX30 video camera on a time lapse, 1 frame per second. So we're expecting to be able to compress this 30-minute lock transfer into about a minute of video, and we'll show portions of that, obviously not the whole thing, but it'll be interesting. We are still moving forward toward the lock gates. It's going to be any minute now where they're going to stop and flood this, I think, or open us up to the next unflooded gate on the other side, one or the other. The first of the two tugs, mules, that's pulling us through is now negotiating the incline stair that they take to get up on the higher level. And once they do that, then I'm expecting they will pull us into the next chamber, which apparently is already empty, because there's no way the level we're on doesn't have any opportunity for lift. So what they've done is they've got the intermediate chamber emptied. We'll sail in and then they'll flood that, and that'll raise us up to that next level that you see right there. I've been standing still here for about 5 minutes, kind of waiting for something to happen on one end or the other of this lock. So I paused my time lapse so I didn't have to wait, all that time for things to happen. And we'll start it back up once we start moving again. All right, now that's the first gate on the other side. That's for the eastbound traffic coming through. We are on the westbound lane over here, and that's the eastbound lane over there. And you can see that that is flooding. And what will be happening is in a minute we'll be flooding too to get up to the next level, I think. Yeah, if you take a look over here to the right, you see that red ship over there? He's on the next lock compartment, and he's good, 30 feet above us. So they'll be flooding. Once we get in here, the water will be equalized and we'll be up. Now what'll happen is we'll float through from here to the next empty lock, and then they'll flood that. I don't think they're going to do much flooding here because we're already very close to the top of the works here. As you can see, the gates on the other lane in front of the red ship have just begun opening. He's equalized. He's one step lower than he started out on that giant lake in the middle of Panama. And we will be able to drive into that similar compartment on the right-hand lane in a moment. And then they'll flood that, and that'll put us up at the level we need to be across the lake. So the ship in the other lane, in the eastbound lane, is now making its way out of his lock. And I do not see the tow motors that are hauling our ship moving yet. So I'm betting that will happen after this guy's out. Maybe they don't move the ships at the same time, I don't know. But we're static and they're moving, is all I can tell you. It's pretty dramatic though, pretty dramatic. This is a good example of what it looks like when one's coming back down. You see the tow motor over there pulling him. Actually, that tow motor right there is absolutely not even a taut line at the moment. It's this guy over here who's doing the pulling, and the lines to the lines over here are loose. Okay, this guy down here, we got one guy, one tow motor down here, and another one on the other side. They're doing all of the pulling. That wasn't framed up correctly. There's your two tow motors, both sides, in the shot at the moment. And you can see the clearance is just, it's like 3 feet at the most each side. These ships are engineered to fit through here. That's why they built the new lock system, is because bigger and more modern ships want to be bigger for cargo, and only what they call the Panamax class can fit through these. which I'm pretty sure Holland America is. I'm pretty sure the Holland America Vista class ships make it through the old locks, but some of their newer ones may not. Now here's a really good example of how they control the orientation of the ship as it relates to the sidewalls. This tow motor right here has got them on, holding on tight, and they've got other motors on the other side doing the same thing to keep it centered up in the channel of the lock. And so this guy's, you know, they're both sides at the front and the back are being held tight in between the walls of the lock so that they're not bumping anything. There's the gates closing up behind him. As soon as those gates are closed, I'm imagining that ours are going to open and start pulling us out, and as you can see, that'll be the top, because there's a whole pile of ships out here on the lake, the big lake, which is the big feature of the Panama Canal. What a lot of people don't understand, if you haven't read about it, is that the Panama Canal is not a ditch that goes all the way through. Let's talk to the camera a little bit. The Panama Canal is not a ditch that goes all the way through the Isthmus of Panama. It's a big, huge lake in the middle, or multiple small lakes, bodies of water joined periodically by locks that lift you up to the next highest level. If you had to dig a ditch all the way across here, it would have never got done. So the brilliant engineering innovation on this that the Americans brought to this was how to basically use the lakes in the inland parts of, you know, the lake that spans most of the distance between coastlines as a buffer, and only have locks and ditches dug, you know, periodically at the ends and in the middle, but certainly not a ditch all the way through. Now here's some Pinoy crewmen on the ship just across from us, yucking it up a little bit. We're still not moving. I'm expecting that to start happening any moment now, and then once we get moving, we'll just go straight on out. Here we go, driving by the main lock house of the gates on locks, dated on the side of the building as 1913. And there's the top lock on just past this crane on the left, and then further up where the ships in the tug are lined up to guide them in is the level of the lake. So we got to go into one more lock, close the door, and raise it up to the level of that lake before we can proceed out onto the lake. Fascinating. If you look real carefully, and listen real carefully. You can hear the water flooding. You can see they've got some kind of piping built into this wharf that is here in the middle, because there's all kinds of sound of rushing water. And as you can see, that lock is already really a lot higher than it was when that other ship exited it. It's this bubbling water here or over here, and even on the other side. It looks almost, for all intents and purposes, like the wash in the sea that you see on a cruise ship when they're operating the thrusters up at the front of the ship. So anyway, that's just a little tidbit. You can see that the lock that we're looking at right here is almost now up to the level of that lake up there. And so this is the final chamber. Good luck. Now here comes the other ship coming west to eastbound. And it doesn't look like we're moving at all for quite some time, so I'm expecting that they will move us out once this guy's all the way in, or what. I suspect that they're waiting for, perhaps they have some kind of a protocol that they only move one ship into a lock. They don't move both sides at the same time. I'm betting that's what it is. Time will tell. We'll find out in a minute here. Real carefully, you can see the lines, the tight lines on both tugs, both sides. So those are the lines that are holding the ship into the middle of the canal, of the lock actually at this point, to prevent it from hitting the sides. And then there's other tugs further back which are doing the same thing. So you've got a line right on the bow of the ship and a line about 30 feet back, two on each side, and I'm betting that there's a line at the rear that I'm not seeing right now. So the ships are really pulled tight right down the middle of the channel of these locks by these motors. A little bit hard to see it, but coming off the back of the ship is a lot of propeller wash, and since I know that propeller isn't the one for the ship, I'm betting that what they're doing is pushing it in from the back with tugs. And then once they've got all the way in the lock channel, as it were, then they'll hook those lines up. Well, as a matter of fact, there he is. Never mind. The tug further on at the rear is right there. You can see him in the distance. So you have a tug at the rear and a tug near the bow and another tug over here. So three on each side, in addition to the tugboats that I'm sure were pushing it in from the backside. The final lock is open, and we're inching our way out into the lake. Now, as we've made our way away from the locks and are out into the lake, now you can start to see a lot of shipping converging on the locks. Okay, so here's one, and as we pan across over here, I'm counting 1, 2, 3 more within easy visibility in this channel. These are all apparently heading, if I had to guess, these are all smaller ships. They'll be headed for the old locks, which would be down there where we came from. So it's a gorgeous day. The sun is intense, but the temperature is not so hot. So it's sort of 50% good. The intensity of the sun here, though, is just, if you don't have a hat on, you're dead. And now we're still in the Panama Canal, and this is what they call the Gaetan Cut, I think was the pronunciation. It was one of the more difficult portions of the canal, because there was a lot of deep excavation to get through here. This was a part that was higher than the lake level, where they had to cut through. As you can see, a little bit of kind of mountains going on here. I'm not sure if it's mountains or what, but it was a part of the excavation which was very problematic. So in about a half an hour we're going to get to the Pedro Miguel locks, and then after that we'll have the Miraflores locks, and we'll be in the Pacific Ocean just a couple of hours from now. We're coming into the Pedro Miguel locks very shortly, and we've picked up a pilot boat. Well, actually, those are pilot boats over there. We've picked up a tugboat over here, and another one coming in over here. And the speculation is that those boats are going to be kind of guiding the front of this, kind of pushing us in the right direction as we enter the Pedro Miguel lock. And then once we're, presented there, then the little mule tugs on the rails on the side of the lock will take over. But I think that these pushers, you can see their tugs and pushers. You can see they got the big rubber bumpers up front and rear, and definitely a different configuration than those pilot boats over there, which are to put pilots on board. So anyway, we're standing by. We're not moving at the moment, which is a sign that we're queued up and we're getting near the moment when we'll get through the second set of locks. All right, now right down here is a bird's eye view of this wharf, that houses all the gear and machinery for these tugs. One of the interesting things I noticed is that they've got this. Let's try this. They've got this roundhouse down here so that they can get these tugs on that turntable and turn them going the other way, so they can switch directions, much just like a train roundhouse. And here's the works. Okay, now you can see here's a guy. There's one, two. I see two tugs so far, both of them at the front. I'm imagining that there'd be the same thing on the other side as we narrow down this tunnel headed for these locks. Again, Pedro Miguel locks, second of three as part of our crossing. We are approaching the Pedro Miguel locks. That's the second of three that we went through the Gayton locks, across the Gayton Lake. And here's the Pedro Miguel locks, which is at the end of the lake, which is going to start dropping us down to sea level. And then finally we'll hit the Miraflores locks a little bit further down, and that'll be the end of the transit. Now there's a bunch of very interested parties up here, which is fine. And you'll see that there's another ship in the lane to the right of us headed in. And then there's a Norwegian something or other over there on a different lane than we are. There must be a gate somewhere back yonder, because that body of water that this Costco shipping and that Norwegian sure looks higher than where we are. I don't know, but I don't see any place where it's fenced off. So anyway, that's a good question. Now that I'm looking at it and looking at that Costco shipping across the way there, it's more clear that it was an optical illusion. This little bank over here kind of gives the impression that water is higher than this. But I don't think it is, because the only way for it to have been so would be for them, because right back there we were all at the same level, and the only way for them to have gotten any higher than us was for us or them to get inside of a lock and go down, which hasn't happened yet. So I'm just telling you that there's no chance that that water is at the same level. So now we're pulling in right next to this other ship, and it looks like what they're going to do is let us both, maybe both go in at the same time or not. I don't know if that's policy or not. It looked like earlier they were basically letting one ship go through one side and the other one on the other side was waiting. So we'll find out in a few moments whether or not we're going to proceed all the way into this lock and go on down at the same time as this Orient Innovation from Singapore. If you're looking straight down, you can see that we are really about 1 foot, or it's probably really 3 feet, but it doesn't look like it from up here. It looks like about a foot of clearance between the concrete wharf and the ship moving through with the assistance of these mule/tow motors. It looks for all appearances that we're going to go in at the same time as this other ship. Although he's already his lock is already drained most of the way. He is down on a much lower level. You see the gate over there. See the gate right there? It's closed, and you see the water is being held back, and the ship itself is further down as it drains. All right, now I've walked all the way to the back of the ship, the aft, on deck 10. And the reason for that is I want to get a shot of the gates closing behind us and then having us start to kind of drop as the water evacuates the lock. And as it turns out, it's a nice surprise coming back here because the glass screen is only chest high here, so it's really easy to get a photo or a video without the intrusion of the glass and the reflection of the glass, and how I talked about the glass confuses the autofocus on the camera, all those reasons. So in a moment here, I'm gonna cut this video off right now, but in a moment we'll be able to see the gates closing up behind the ship and see how that action looks. Now what you are seeing at the moment is over here the back of our ship pulling into the lock, and over there the dual sets of gates that are holding the water back from that lock, which is being drained right now, so that the ship will end up on a lower level. So what I'm expecting to happen in about a minute or so is the tail end of our ship over here will get far enough along that a corresponding set of gates just like these can close off behind us. And I'm hoping to give you a shot of that happening, and then from what it looks like inside the lock while it's being drained, so that you can see is obviously, the deck is way down. And so when you're inside of a lock, it's kind of an interesting feeling because it's like this slimy green concrete wall and you can't see anything but that. So anyway, we're going to hope for that in a couple of minutes. These yellow stripes along the side of that the tug has already moved past correspond to those yellow handrails on that side over there. So that's the gate, and beyond it another gate that is at the moment retracted up against the side of the channel here. But we are now past the gate, we're inside the gate, and I'm expecting that means that in a few moments here they're going to close those gates, and then after they're all the way closed, we'll start the process of draining the water out of the lock compartment that we're in. Okay, the tug has started backing up, and the gates, both sets of gates, have started closing, both sides. You can see that now. Those gates will hold back the water in this lane in much the same way they're holding back the water over there in the lane to our left. And then once that happens, then they'll start draining the water. They'll open the gates at the front of the lock we're in, which at the moment are closed and keeping the water high. Once these close, then they'll start draining the water out and then open the gates. I'm pretty sure they don't just open the gates and let the water drain out. They drain the water out first in a more controlled way using pipes, big pipes that are in the walls of these lock lanes, so that you don't have a big flush of water coming out all at once from the gate face. These are nearly closed. The weight on these things must be just phenomenal. I'm sure there's statistics that you can go look at to see how many tons they are. Okay, so the back one is closed all the way. The front one's got about a foot to go. It is almost there. Okay, and that's it. Okay, so now from this point forward, what's I'm expecting to happen is that we should start going down. They won't open the gates at the front all at once because all the water would rush all at once. They let the water out at a controlled rate, and then once it's down, once this level of the water inside the lock is down at sea level, then they'll open the gates and just drive it on out. You can see over there on the concrete wall that we're about 4 feet down already from the water above. You see that green algae covered mess over there? That's in front of the second gate, the closest gate. That's where the water line was. Okay, so now we're getting closer to maybe almost 6 feet down. Same thing over here on this side. While the water behind stays at its level. Very ingenious mechanism. By the way, this is not new innovation. A lock system had been in place in industrial England for transporting all kinds of goods all over the country before the railroads came in and kind of wiped them out in the 1800s. But they had mule-drawn barges all over England for a long, long time. What is unique about this is the scale of the engineering that had to go into it to conquer, the disease, the heat, the dangerous work, the amount of millions of yards of excavation. Everything about it was, at the time, the most of everything. All right, so there's kind of the action there. I'm going to go ahead and shut this shot off. You can see it's obvious now that we're down almost 10 feet. Finally, this is the last hurrah exiting the Pedro Miguel lock, which is the second of 3, as we said. There. Here's the end of it right down there. It will be on Miraflores Lake until we hit the Miraflores lock a little further down. And there's what you saw. There are the gates holding it all back. Finally, here we are entering the Miraflores locks. The Pedro Miguel and Miraflores are very near one another, and I mean you can actually see the one from the other. I think there's a small lake in between the two. So this will be the third and final lock, Miraflores, and then once we come out of this, we'll be on the Pacific Ocean side of things. I'm not going to cover this in great depth because we already did lock coverage on the other 2 locks, and we'll just let you know that this is the third and final lock, the Miraflores locks. We've emerged from the Panama Canal, and we're on our way out into the Pacific. And it's pretty interesting. You see there are ships everywhere laying by, waiting for their turns to go through. It's a very busy place. It's about 5:30 p.m. on Sunday, January 26, 2025. And you see all of those ships waiting to pass through the Panama Canal. The seas are beautiful, the sunset's beautiful, life is good.